expenses will go down and my cash flow will go up. In other words, I get a check from the federal government for owning real estate. Forever. And pass it on to the next generation. Because once you have these assets and they're protecting you, then those assets can always be used to borrow against to buy more. Which is what we're going to talk about when we get to crypto. I don't hold on forever. You know, there are times there I sell. Depending on what the market is, but you shouldn't. Really, this guy told me if I bought, when I had that first one, if I bought one a year for 10 years, I'd be a multi-millionaire. I could retire by the time I'm 40, 50. And he's true. He was right. Now at 24, I'm looking at him cross-eyed like, you mean I gotta wait another 20 years? But he was right. It zoomed by. If I had kept all those properties, yeah, I would have been a millionaire. He was absolutely right, especially Atlanta. Why? Because we've got to look at personal, our income statement, and our balance sheet. Right? So we look at our income statement first. We've got revenue, we're working somewhere, we're an entrepreneur, we're making our money, and then we've got our expenses. What we have to do, if we're going to practice delayed gratification, we have to become frugal. There's a difference between being frugal and being cheap. Cheap says, I'll do without. No, I'm not doing without. That's when the students say, well, you know, when they ask me in class, you know, if I got to practice delayed gratification, what am I going to? No, that's not it. You can buy, like you use coupons, you do whatever you can to try and get a deal. Now that I'm over 65, everywhere I go, I ask for the senior discount.
All right.
Straight. And the other thing is, I wish I went to the military. You know, I was growing up, I dated a young lady who in the military. Everywhere we go, military discount. I realized, I said, oh man, I should have joined that thing just for 2 years and then go out there, I could do that. I said, meanwhile, you could be my date anytime. I'm getting into stuff free and discount. And I like that. I like the way you roll. But I'm there all the time. You know what's funny? Depending on how you interact with the counter, with the cashier, will depend on if you get the senior discount or not. So that's another thing. I'm always mentioning their name. I'm always nice to them. Kind of dressed like I might have something going on, even though I may not really, but I act like it. And, you know, joke with them. And they say, oh, by the way, you know, they got to see this guy, you know, my bunion hurting today. Think you can help me out? Yeah, go ahead. They give me sometimes yes, sometimes no. But anyway, so we're going to control our expenses by being frugal, right? Not necessarily being cheap. Yeah, I'm going to drive a car. It's not going to be a new car. But it's going to be a car. I'm going to pay cash for it. I'm going to talk to one of my friends who's got the light, go to the auction, and we're going to get a car. Then I'm going to take the net income I've left over and put it into assets, i.e. real estate. Right? But we're going to put it into something that is going to grow and generate revenue for us. So that revenue circles back up into our income statement. Because eventually we want to have enough real estate that's earning enough that we can, if we had to, leave our job and live off the income from those properties.
So it's like a cycle.
It's a cycle.
It's a circle.
Right, getting bigger and bigger and bigger over time.
Oscar, one thing I think you mentioned frugal, but I think one thing you need to note is as your revenue grows, you cannot grow your expenses at the same rate. You have to be mindful that the frugality doesn't change. I mean, Warren Buffett lives in the same house he lived in 45 years ago. He buys all his clothes on sale. I mean, if you can hold that number down and continue to grow the revenue, now you got the wealth.
That's it. Exactly. So that's exactly what you have to do. Because you have a lot of people, they talk about they want a salary increase. They get a salary increase, what's the first thing they do?
Buy more.
Buy more. Expenses go up. Bigger house, bigger car, more girlfriends, whatever, boyfriends, whatever they do, they just messing up. Right? But you're right, I gotta keep these expenses in line because the cycle is to keep growing that net income, to keep building more and more assets. Our liabilities. We should never borrow unless it's to generate wealth. That's why you don't borrow money for a new car. You wait and get a couple of year old car and pay cash for it. Yes.
You said borrow for wealth. Could you give like an example of that?
Yes, I will borrow money to maybe put something that will save me, reduce my expenses, right? Like maybe a better air conditioning unit that's going to drop my electricity costs. Or I am going to take that money, save it, and I might buy some more real estate. That's what I mean. So I'm trying to generate revenue, or I'm trying to reduce my expenses. That's how I'm trying to do it. And the other one is it's going to increase my wealth. Right? If I buy something and it's going to grow in value over time, i.e. crypto, then I'm growing my wealth and I'm just letting it sit there. That's what liabilities are for. Not I'm going on the trip I want to go to Cancun and I got to use my credit card to go. No, you need to save money to go and use cash. If not, the interest is going to get you. You're on the plantation. That's what they want.
One of the other items that you may need to incur is if you buy a property, you may put a mortgage on it. That's a good liability. The key is, and I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about it, is the cost of your debt. If you can't earn enough to pay more than the cost of the debt, then leave it alone.
Right. Exactly. And that's the sooner you understand that, the better off. Because when you're younger, you got more energy, I'm gonna tell you, and you can work harder and longer. And that allows you to generate more revenue, save money, and build those assets. The earlier you buy it, the better off. When we talk about a return on real estate, there's 4 returns that we get. 2 of them are on the balance sheet side, and 2 of them are on the income side. That's what makes real estate so powerful. On the balance sheet side, the property value is going up, especially Atlanta. Unbelievable the numbers I see. They just keep getting. I don't know where. I said one day. Now I laugh about this, and you probably say this is crazy, but one day all properties might start at $1 million.
Yep.
And if you had asked me in 1980 that the properties would be 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, I told you I don't know what you were smoking, man, but don't give me none of that. No way. The same thing is the monthly reduction of the mortgage, right? You got a mortgage, every month you're making a payment, so the balance of that mortgage is going down. And who's paying that? The tenant. The tenant. So you're getting appreciation and your wealth is going up and liabilities are going down as they make their monthly payments. On the income side, our revenue is going up because we're collecting rent, our cash flow is going up, and tax deductions. Right? Non-cash depreciation for the most part, we call it. But my expenses will go down and my cash flow will go up. In other words, I get a check from the federal government for owning real estate. So those 4 things really is what boosts that return so much. And it changes over time. When I was younger, I wasn't really interested that much in income as I was looking for appreciation. The first properties I bought them because I figured when I had kids, eventually they'd want to go to college, I could use these properties to pay for them to go to college. And that's why I started buying. Now, it would be more, I want the monthly income to offset my check that I get. So, I want to talk about example number 1. This is my first property I bought. Arnold's smiling because I used to have my office. Arnold just worked with me as a student and afterwards. Yeah, it's a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom on Beecher Street over there by the Kroger's in West End. And this is me, 1980. I was still in graduate school. I'm a bottom feeder. I buy low, don't wanters. And when I buy them, I have real estate agents bring them to me. I don't really go out and hunt for them that much. I find real estate agents. Matter of fact, I just found one last week. I was appraising a church for someone, and that real estate agent, they specialize in, distressed property. So I gave my card, I said, put me on the list, something comes across, I'm looking for like a duplex or something. And that's how I normally get it. So when I first started, this time I was 23. And I went to 3 different real estate agents and told them what I was looking for. And this older guy found this one for me. It was vacant. Like I said, 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom. And most of the neighborhood were older African Americans in the house. And this one, a couple owned it. They had some tenants, they got tired of it. I think some of those were family members. They kind of messed the place up. But I'm not one of those you see like on TV where I'm knocking out walls. It just needed some paint, some carpet, some loving care to it, right? And I had saved some money from graduate school and used that. They were asking $40,000. And in reading some books, they told me, I went in there, I offered them like 33. I said, I'll give you, they owed 23 on a VA mortgage, which was assumable. So I needed to give them 10,000. I told them I'm a student, I don't have $10,000, but I can give you 3, so at least they walk out of there with some money. If you'll take back a second for 7, which is what they decided to do. And again, this is my first, I'm young. I said, I don't want to rent anymore. I'm going to be working somewhere, and I just want to be able to have it. Yes.
Can you explain more in detail what a second is?
Yes. There's in this deal, there was $10,000 worth of equity. Because it was a VA, I could assume it back then. It was a non-escalating, non-qualifying. I just had to sign for it. Like, great, don't do that. Interest rate was low. It was funny because they said that there was that mortgage, if I had kept it, it was going to end in 2002. And I remember looking at that and saying, man, that's a long time. I don't know if I'll live that long. I said, man, I'll never forget. I said, 2002? Wow. Okay. So I said, I'll do that now, but they want 10 grand. I could give them 10, but I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to get it for the low. So I already hit them on the price a little bit. And now I want to make sure that they get enough money that when they close, they can get a little check. That's what you want to do. But I told them, if you take back a second, it's $7,000. It's going to be $92 a month for 10 years. You'll get a check every month. You don't have to worry about the taxes on the property anymore. All that's gone. You get your little check and sit back. If I don't pay, you can come back and get the property and sell it again. So they said, okay, they'll do it. So it was funny. The real estate agent thought my price was too low. And I happened to tell him, I said, well, you got to present it. Don't worry about it. Just present it. So they called me back and said, Professor, she said, Sistrunk, good news. They accepted your deal. And I said, I am mad as I don't know what. I didn't go low enough. I knew I should have went 29 something. But I was trying to be nice. And ever since then, I learned. I want to see if they'll counter. On the other hand, whenever I'm selling something, I'll always counter. That's the way it is. It's part of the negotiation process, right? But I bought this because I wanted to have a 1-bedroom to live in. I was dating my future wife. I figured, okay, we can start off here. The 2-bedroom, quick story, it was $260 a month. They paid utilities. I had rented while I was at Morehouse for about 3 years. And every year the rent would go up like 2 or 3%. So I said, what if I took $260 a year and I go up on rent about 3% a year to about the year 2020? What would that rent be worth? And I remember punching the numbers on a little calculator. It came out, it said that my rent would be $1,200 some dollars. That's impossible. Nobody would ever spend $1,000 for a 2-bedroom in Atlanta. You crazy. No way. Right. I'll never forget that. I knew something was wrong with the calculator. This is impossible. I don't know what's going to be. That can't be the case. Yes.
Answering his question, though, the second is a loan behind the VA loan. So he has 2 loans on the property. My question is, what was the rate of the VA loan and what was the rate of the second loan?
Okay.
Because the second loan has more risk.
Right.
So it's,
I would say probably it was a higher rate. I don't remember. It was $92.51 a month. I remember that. $7,000.
and what was the term?
And the term was probably 15 years.
You did use.
So I got it pretty good on that. On the VA, it was $175 a month. It was nothing. I think it was 2% or something like that. It was on the VA loan.
So you were getting paid.
So the rent from this unit paid everything. My utilities back then, everything. So I was living free in the one bedroom, which I needed when I started working in Morehouse. They were only paying, my take home check every month was only $750. Yeah. I was like, holy cow. But I didn't have to pay anything where I was living. My car, I bought got a car for graduation. So I was living pretty good.
And the reason he was willing to do the second was because you were going to pay what his payment would be.
Right,
So he was carrying that, but you were actually making the payments for it.
Well, the first mortgage, the VA, I'm gonna take ownership of it, right? So it's on me. The second is allowing him to get money every month, hurry up and close this deal and get out of it. Right, and he have a little income coming in. That was it. I didn't want to try and tell him, take all of it as a second, because it's his closing costs that he's got to pay. And that would mean he'd have to come to the table and bring money. That's not gonna work.
Right.
So when you see these, no money down deals, and I did have one, which I'll explain in a minute how I did that. But for the most part, I'm gonna give them a little something.
One other point to that is that an argument that I use with sellers is when you have a second, when you have what's called purchase money mortgage, he only has to recognize his gain as he gets paid. So while he made $10,000 on the entire deal, he doesn't have to pay it capital gains on that 10. He has to just pay it as he gets paid. So for some people, that's a strategy because their tax hit is less.
So really, it works out. Now, 99 is when I sold it. I just, at that time, my life was hectic. My girls were in high school and so much stuff. Funny story. I had really two good tenants. They were paying, they would leave the payment on the dining room table, and I could just come in and come get it. I was so busy, I couldn't even go get the rent. And I remember the lady called me, Mr., are you gonna come get rent this month? I said, yes, I'll be right back. I forgot, golly. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna sell it. What I should have done is I should have just got a company to manage it. But I was so into like, I gotta control everything back then. And I just didn't have the time. Let me take my profit. I'm gonna do something else with the money. But now I understand, no, you don't do that. This property right here, and where it is now, again, it needs to be renovated. It has a full stand-up basement to it. You need to turn it to one, take this wall out of here, make it one unit, with stairs going downstairs, bathroom, maybe a mother-in-law suite down there. All day long on this street, renovated houses are at $400,000. You look it up on Zillow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I've got one listed around the corner for $435.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable. That guy was right. I say that to my every day. That guy said, I bought 10 of these. 40 years ago. I got 10, that's $4 million. And they were easy. Now that neighborhood went through a lot, but it was worth it. Yes.
So you said when you bought that, you had rented out both rooms?
I rented out the 2-bedroom. I stayed in the 1-bedroom. I got married 2 years later, then had our first child 2 years after that. So in '84, my wife told me we need our own house. So I went out and I bought a house through foreclosure. I bought a foreclosed house. And we lived out there. And then I rented this one for a few years, but I had a hard time keeping a single tenant in there. They're just not, that was a problem. So I ended up turning it into my office, where Mr. Mark used to work with me. We used to work out of that office. And that was it. And so I never really rented the one bedroom at all. It was always my office, and then I moved my office to an office building. And I said, I don't need this unit, and it's too much of a headache. I had to keep evicting people in the one bedroom. And that was another reason. I said, I'm just gonna get rid of it. Example number 2. This is a negative situation. It's a friend of mine. This is in Norwich, Connecticut. We were last week up near Foxwoods Casino. This is a good friend of mine named Gary Payne, who I met when I was working up there. We became very good friends. 2019, I lived up there for 3 months during the summer, and I stayed in this house with him. And one of the things is he bought this house back in 2009, he paid $114. And this is what is really nice about this guy. He had a really rough background. As a matter of fact, he spent 10 years in prison for selling drugs. And this was a family kind of thing. But he got his act together. He was working at with the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation. And I met him, and he was working with kids and youth, trying to keep them out of drugs and that kind of stuff. And he had a little business. He was saving his money, and I had helped him buy this house. I was up in Connecticut at the time. And I told him, man, why don't you buy a house? I'll help you. And so he bought this house. And he was a good repair guy. He finished off these 2 sections of downstairs. It's one of those split levels. So upstairs is a 3-bedroom, bath and a half. And then he put a bath and 2 rooms down in the basement. Really nice place. I stayed with him in 2019. And you remember we talked about wealth and how you have to keep your health and your mental. And he did neither. His mental thing is he was always thinking about the past. And one thing I tell people, you always got to look towards the future. We can remember the past, we can think about it, good and bad, but we got to go into the future. Because remember, today is our future's past. So we can change stuff now for our future. And I used to try and get him to see that, but he wouldn't. And he ended up getting COVID. And he passed away. He was maybe 54. He had diabetes, but he wouldn't take care of himself. So I had to amputate some of his toes. I mean, it was one of those things. And I had diabetes, so I was trying to coach him and help him, but sometimes it just didn't work. So the reason I say that is one of the things I was telling him is kind of, and this is kind of like a preemptive, is maybe you should think about, you have a son, how's this house going to transfer? At the time he said, well, man, if I get sick, I'm just going to sell it. I said, yeah, but you got some equity in this thing. Maybe you want to pass it on to your son. And so he didn't do it. And then, of course, COVID hit, and he passed away. And I looked at it recently, and I see that in his estate, he lost it. I suspect his son, if they could, whatever happened, he ended up losing it. These people picked it up in August of last year, 206.70, probably did some work to fix it up. Wasn't that bad at all, but probably did some stuff that's been vacant for a while. And now they got it on the market for $329 now. I mean, this made me sick when I saw that. So that's what happens if we're going to talk about multi-generational. One of the things we have to do is remember we have to set up something for that to happen, because you'll never know when it's time to go. Right? When they knock on the door and it's time to go, you don't know. So you have to prepare for it. And so no matter what your age is, you start accumulating these assets. You never know. You need to have that alternative, a way for them not to have to fight over it. You see that as an appraiser. We see it all the time. All the time. Fighting over air property. I mean, it's terrible. And I just wanted to say that I know that one in particular. And it really, when I saw that really bugged me. So I said, I want to put that up there, because that's something that we really got to make sure doesn't happen to us. Now, let's talk about, instead of me talking about some other ones, I want to talk about the latest one that I bought back in January of 22. I used my cryptocurrency to buy a rental property. and the returns are unbelievable. And everybody I show this to, they get it, what this is. You know, I'm like Brian was saying, I'm really into crypto. I think it's the future, it's the fastest way off the plantation. I think it changes everything. This is a game changer. We're just so early in it, we don't see it, but it's coming. The rails are being built. It's sort of like the internet when it first started. I used to show some old videos of when people talked about the internet in the early 90s, what it was, and then you look back and see what it's become. Crypto's the same way. So basically, what I did, and I'm going to show you the website in a minute, I use what's called decentralized finance to borrow against my crypto. I can borrow up to 80% loan to value. I borrowed that. There is no monthly payments with that loan. The interest rate just accumulates into the balance. So I'm going to pull the cash out. I'm going to offer a deal to pay cash for the property. The interest expense accrues daily on that. The interest income that I use as collateral, the collateral I have, it generates income, interest income. Even though it's being collateralized, they're still paying me interest on it. So the net of the interest I'm getting on my collateral, plus the expenses on the loan, makes my annual interest less than 1%. So at the end of a year, the increase is only less than 1%. It's margin of nothing. If I've got a loan to value ratio of 70%, everything I can save would be 70.5%. But in the meanwhile, I have nothing. So I convert the borrowed crypto, right? I borrow against it, I get new crypto. I turn that crypto into cash. I move the cash into my bank account. And that's when they're going to ask me, where the money came from. It came from a loan. Okay? I wire it to the closing attorney. I close the deal. According to the records, I bought that property cash. There's no lien on that property. I own it free and clear.
How long did it take?
Well, the process with them is it took, I guess, about 3 weeks. And that was, when I decided to do this, it took a day. And the only reason that what took the longest was my bank. When I put the cash in the bank, they had to wait a day for it to clear. Because I was saying, just wire it to the people. Well, we got to wait for it to clear. You ever go into a bank, it's like, it's a zombie company. They're dead, they just don't know it yet. Ain't nobody in there. And if they are, they're old folks like me. They go to the bank, take the check. Look at this. This is like 1990. There's no young people in the bank. They're through. So that took me the longest with the bank. All of this took 5 minutes, maybe. Borrowing the money, turning it into cash, sending the cash to the bank. I did it on my cell phone in a few minutes. So I don't have to ask any permission. As long as I have the collateral, they let me borrow up to a certain amount. And we may want to do a couple of hours on this one day, because there are some risk issues and show you how all the variables lay out, but you could easily mitigate that. So imagine what happens. I offered, the man died, he had about 4 or 5 children, and he owned about 6 houses. This house in particular they wanted to sell so they could distribute some cash for everybody while they figure out what to do with the rest. They were asking $50,000 for it. I created a web page for it, just for myself. This is the property. It's got a garage. It's got a 3-bedroom, bath and a half, living room. Wasn't that bad a shape. This is in East St. Louis. A real estate agent from there called me and said, I got this property. I said, okay, I'm interested. They wanted to sell, they wanted 50 for it. I offered them 45. I said, I can close in 2 weeks, subject to an inspection. Knowing that the inspector was probably going to find something. I wanted to get a property inspection and a sewer inspection, along with, a termite inspection. Because I'm paying cash, there's no lender requirement of that. I just wanted to make sure what the property was, since I'm not going to see it. They did send me some pictures, so I had a video, and I've got listings, I've got deeds, all this kind of stuff I have access to, so I can look it up and kind of see what's going on.
So you never touched the property?
No, never touched the property. It was such a good deal, and I had somebody tenant who was gonna pay $1,000 a month. So
You still have that one?
yeah, I only had a little over a year. So the tenant paid us like clockwork. She's an old lady, I know the family, and I said, yeah, I'll do this deal. And what I did is they gave me $1,500 towards fixing some of the things, and I gave that to the lady and said, when you move in, you fix it. With the inspector, with the property inspection, we knew exactly what was wrong. A couple of cracked windows. There was something with the tile that needed to be fixed. 2 new door locks, that kind of stuff. I said, here's $1,500. You can go ahead and fix it. There was a problem with the electrical system, and the owners tried to run the game on it. But I said, no, that's why I have to have an inspection. They had rigged up the fuse box, the breaker box, and they had multiple wires going into the box. So the guy took a picture. And I said, oh, no. We got to get an inspection, right. So the inspector told me what the problem was and how much it was going to cost to fix it. And of course, I increased that, though. This is what it's going to cost. And they said, okay, we'll take that off the price. And then I told the inspector, I will pay you to go fix it, which I did. And fixed it, made sure the lady, everything was fine. So, like I said, it's 3 bedroom, 1 bath, nice house, 175. Here's how the deal works, right? So I closed it in 14 days. They gave me a reduction, so I paid $43,500, which I had my bank wired to the closing attorney. And in Illinois, I didn't have to be there. Right? They sent the paperwork, and I have all that up there online if I can look at it. And it just kind of moved real quick. I didn't have to send anybody, because they do title. They didn't have an attorney. They use title companies. So I get $1,000 a month for rent. I pay taxes and insurance. So per year, I get almost $10,000. I have no mortgage payment. I get the tax break. I get the fact that the real estate is growing over time. Here's the big kicker. I still have my crypto, which is going to grow over time. So that crypto is sitting there right now. It's at the low spot, right? We're in that 4-year cycle where this is the time to start buying, and eventually it's going to do a multiple X over the next few years, which will allow me to take the same crypto, borrow more to buy another piece of property. Right? So not only now is my cash flow real strong, yes.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. You get the crypto back?
I keep it. Even though it's collateral, it's in my account. Remember, we're not in the plantation. They'll take my collateral, hide it somewhere, and then they use it. It's still my collateral. I'm borrowing against it. I have to keep it there, but it's still mine. I can grow it. I can pay the loan off anytime I want. If I wanted to, as the crypto grows, I'll just take a pinch off and maybe pay that loan off and just let it keep growing. Now I got the house definitely free and clear, right? Even though it looks free and clear in the kind of real world. Because remember, that loan that allowed me to buy cash is on the crypto. So as the crypto goes up in value, I'm then going to take some of that and pay that loan off. The house and everything else is still free. If I wanted to, and I did this with a small house as a test, think about this. If I wanted to, I could get a line of credit on that house. Just to have it there. For if I saw another deal, I might use that line of credit to buy another piece of property. Yes.
So who is it that limited the loan to value to 80% and where the other 20% come from?
It's 80% because the DEX, it's not really a company. Decentralized finance There is no ownership. We as a group would collaborate to put all our money together that we then lend out to each other. If you can understand that, you know? And the reason it's only 80% is we agreed it's gonna be 80%, because if it does go lower than that, you know, if it goes above 80%, you have to sell some of your collateral to pay that loan down. Right? So that 80% is cushioned because, you know, crypto's kind of volatile. So we could drop 20% in a day. They don't want you underwater. Because it's possible if we all go underwater, we become like FTX. We got these loans out there, crypto's dropped so much, we know more than what the crypto's worth.
So you had to pay the 20%, so the $8,700 or whatever.
Right, what happens is, not on this, but on the crypto, right? Basically, I've got $100,000, let's say, in crypto.
Okay, so you over collateralize so that you get all of your 43 profit.
Right.
Okay.
So I had close to $100,000 in crypto. So I borrowed the 45 against it. So my loan to value is only 45%.
Right.
That means crypto could drop 50%, then I'm in trouble.
But you have up to 80.
But I have up to 80, right? So if crypto goes down, you know how it cycles up and down. If it goes down, I either have to sell some myself and pay the loan down. If I let them liquidate me, meaning my loan to value went over 80%, if they liquidate me, they charge me a 6% fee. I don't want that to happen. So I can liquidate anytime I want. I can put more money in anytime I want, right? Buy more crypto and put it into the savings account. That'll adjust that loan to value. Because I own it and I control it, and I can adjust the loan to value anytime, any way I want. There's nobody telling me what I can and can't do. It's the computer and the blockchain will tell you when you got a problem. So I monitor it all the time. But because the net interest is so small, it's not impacting it that much. And that's why I didn't take out more money and buy something bigger. I figured this is a good way to start. Let's try this thing out. And then as I looked at it, I said, look at my cash flow on this thing. Right? Almost $10,000. And how much money did I put in? At the amount, zero. It was 100% loan. Holy cow. What's the return? I don't know. Infinite, basically. And I'm just waiting for crypto to make its run next year. When you go back and look at the 4 benefits of real estate, appreciation, not only real estate, but the crypto, cash flow, that kind of cash flow, I'm still getting my tax break. I'm not really doing anything with the paying off the loan because, I mean, it's hardly any change. And right now, I'm just waiting until the crypto takes off on the next cycle here next year and figure out if I'm going to pay it or roll it over and buy another piece of property. So it's really amazing what this thing can do. And I'm, again, playing around with it. And then when you start thinking, okay, let's start talking about quads or an apartment complex. The other thing about it, one last thing, is every 4 years, there's a crypto cycle. And you can predict what it's going to do. And during that 4-year cycle, like now, we're at the bottom. If you play it right and use leverage correctly, you can do a 5 or 10x of your money every cycle, which is what people are doing. So think about it. You start investing, I don't know, $100, $1,000, $10,000, and say every 4 years I'm gonna put a 0 at the end of that number. Which is what I did the last 4 years. Put a 0 behind the end of my number. And I looked at it and I said, holy cow.
So instead of your loan being a liability, it's actually an asset to yourself.
Right. Because it's not changing much, it's not 0.5% interest.
Right.
And I'm gonna write that off. You say, oh, you're trying to give me a hard time. Write it off. But you know what the beauty of it is? Your crypto and this kind of stuff takes you off the plantation. I don't really have to deal with the bank that much. It's not gonna be long before Bank of America and all the rest of them, it's gonna be deuces. Right? It's gonna be deuces. Yes.
What was the interest rate determined?
The group, the network, determines that interest rate based on supply and demand, so the interest rate changes every day.
Okay. it's
But
floating.
yes, it's floats.
Okay.
But it's around, I think I'm paying maybe a net 2%, but I'm collecting about 1%, 1.5% on my collateral. So, plus this loan to value, so that's why it's closer to less than 1%. Yeah, right. So I'm only getting about 1% on my collateral, 2% interest rate.
Now that collateral, that is the total amount that you had.
That $100,000 of crypto that I have sitting there,
Right.
waiting for it to go from what, 20-something to over 100 this next cycle. I'm just waiting for it. So that's it. And the thing about DeFi, which is different from all this, is you can get in there now. For people that are really into real estate, I ask you this. When you buy real estate to invest, what if I told you your property is going to grow 100, it's going to double every year? The real estate you buy is a hot market, it's going to double every year. How much money would you borrow at 10% interest? As much as they give me. If it's growing at 100% a year, it's doubling every year, and they say, well, we can lend you, and the interest rate is kind of high, it's 7%. Give me all your money. That's what's happening with crypto. It's just a matter of understanding the cycle and how it's working. You can borrow at 4%, 2%, buy more crypto, put it in the collateral, and next year it's going to double. Well, then I pay that loan back off. They charge me 2% and I made 100% on it. Yeah, I'll take all the money you have.
I was gonna say, this is like super interesting because, today I just had a call with, some lenders about potentially doing an HELOC on one of the properties that I have. And, it was just interesting because they brought up, asset-based lending, which is kind of, it's essentially the same thing where if I have $100,000 in an account, I can take a loan against that 100,000 at a certain interest rate. But it's just interesting because the bank's interest rate is, based off prime. So it's gonna be a lot higher than this right here, but it's essentially the same
It's the
concept.
same thing, right?
So where you might have a wash, let's say I have it in, like a money market account or something like that where I'm gaining 4%, but I borrowed at 6%. So it's like, it's cool, I get a net of 2%, but this, this right here is giving you a lot better net.
And you're exactly right. And the beauty of it is you control it all yourself. There's hardly any transaction cost.
Right.
Right? With the
Right.
bank,
Yeah, too.
you got all the costs. Remember, part of the plantation. Everybody gotta get their little piece.
Yeah.
Right? The boss man and all his buddies gotta get their little cut. But here, there was no transaction. Well, it was very little. Less than half. At this kind of number, it was less than 1% transaction cost because I'm running on the Ethereum network, so there's no charge. But it's not much. This is none. Okay? So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and it's something that they're interested in. I'd love to have.
It may make sense to just have another session.
Right, one day we're gonna have a session and really break this down, get into the details, show you how it works, and actually walk through it and what all the costs are, risk, and how you're gonna mitigate those risks. Yes.
Like, I understand like where it's coming from with here, but the thing I would like to most understand, because I know I haven't done real estate before, I've only done like internships just with people, like doing the simple stuff, like, bringing contracts to people or taking pictures of inside and out. I would like to know like directly, like, I know like how y'all said break it down, I would like to really know like how much are you making on the exact deal instead of just saying like the numbers of the house and stuff.
Well, from my standpoint, I'm more, even though I buy a bottom feeder, and speaker number 3 and 4 will be better at that. Because when I buy, I hold. And I can go back and kind of look at some of the ones that as I got out of them, I can go back and look. But when we come back, in a couple of weeks when those guys come in, ask them. They'll probably better tell you that. Yes.
How are you going about sourcing residential properties in the Atlanta market right now with everything being so high, especially with duplexes?
finding a real estate agent, for me, finding the real estate agent that specializes in looking for those things. Now, there's Atlanta, just about anything inside 285 is a home run if you can find it. I'm looking down in southeast Atlanta, a place called Thomasville right now, as one of the last places that I think you might be able to find some good deals. But Atlanta is hard, I mean, it's really hard, and I agree. Because everybody's looking, they're all over the place. I know we're running out of time, getting ready to close up here. Anybody else have any other
But
questions?
yeah, your competition right now in Atlanta is institutional. It's not like us. You got some private money folks who got more money than sense, and they're gonna sit up in a room up in New Jersey, and they're gonna overbid because they can. But the one thing you have is boots on the ground trumps that. It just takes a lot of work. And you gotta look at those houses that aren't attractive, where the grass is growing up, the shingle, the gutters are hanging off. Oftentimes, those can go below the radar because the big money guys don't wanna be bothered with a $45,000 house. And then you make it in multiples. Think about if he did 10 of those. The multiples, this absolutely works, and you can replicate it. You can do deals, but it's usually the ugly ducklings. It's usually gonna be those houses that nobody wants. You look at it and say, okay, how do I make it work?
And those are the ones I want. I can't compete with the big money people. I can't go in certain neighborhoods, spend $200,000, like you see on TV, spend $200,000, put another 90 in it,
Oh, yeah,
sell it
sell
for
it for
500.
500, yeah.
The other reason what they don't tell you is the tax implication of doing that. Yeah, they make that money, but they gotta pay the short ordinary income tax on that. And if they make the kind of money they talk about, their rate's high. So I don't do that. I buy in whole, just naturally. Yes.
Are there any other areas in Georgia that you see up and coming, other metropolitans, Savannah? What do you feel about those areas?
Yep, I like those. I like Macon. And in those areas, matter of fact, by Mercer University. I like the area out there.
Macon's a good area, actually.
Bacon's hot. Bacon's good.
Mhm.
Bacon's coming up.
Especially, like I said, there's a neighborhood right there attached to Mercer. And I've seen they got some raggedy looking houses over there. That's what I'm looking for. Yes.
Are you ever concerned with buying those fixer-uppers that are in distressed communities? And once you put your money in, it's the concern of burglary, those things affecting the value of it?
What I've always done is I always tell this, I always bought a property that was kind of quasi-bad. I'm not going in. I had some clients that used to carry a pistol when they went to collect rent. That's not me. I used to tell people all the time, I'm only gonna buy a house because if my wife ever kicked me out, I can go live there and I'd feel safe. That's how I looked at it. So yeah, those really bad neighborhoods I stayed out of. I'm not going in certain other kind of neighborhoods.
I can answer that. I used to be in the mobile home business. That's the bottom rung in real estate. And I grew up in construction. So what might look absolutely awful to the average person, I can kind of figure it out. As far as security, what I typically did is I'd find somebody to just live in the house. Well, let's say if I had a delay, and obviously it's livable, that you can, it's not, the roof's not leaking, you can put power on, and you hire somebody to live in it. Or what I used to do is I used to hire a neighbor, or somebody in the neighborhood keeps eyes on it, and I'd put a Ring camera up there. I mean, there are ways to protect yourself, but I'll take them down and dirty. It's the neighborhood that I'm going after, and I try to get right off the really strong neighborhoods. So for instance, if I was doing like Cascade, I would go 5 blocks away from Cascade. And I try to figure out which way it was kind of going. I'd try to buy the worst little piece of house I could, because the most valuable property on any block is that little bitty house that's not worth a lot, because it's gonna rise with everybody else. And I go get them. I don't have a problem with it.
And to me, you know about how this problem, it wasn't the neighbors that were stealing. I had to watch the daggone contractors. You know, and I had to tell them up front, if something gets stolen, that's on your dime. Right? Because I had to do that one time. Man, I can't, next day all the wood was gone. I said, we better replace it. I'm not buying anymore.
Yeah.
Or you're not gonna get the rest of the money. I'll get somebody else. But I'm not in those kind of neighborhoods that really that bad. That's just me. Yes.
How do y'all feel about the tiny home situation that's coming about?
I used to own some tiny homes for Airbnbs, for hospitality rentals. You know, people coming in town and they want to be here for a few days to a month or 6 months. It's fine. Where tiny homes fall down, and they're not saying it publicly, where tiny homes fall down is when someone's been in it for 18 months to 2 years, you run out of room. And even if it's an individual, it is so hard to manage your life because as we live, we accumulate. You buy another pair of shoes, you buy a coat, you may buy a chair. You don't have the luxury. And it's not even being frugal. I watch people that rented my tiny homes, and most of these were single guys, and they didn't have a lot. But 18 months out, Mr. King, can I put a shed back in the back? Can I put something back here? Because I need a place to keep my winter stuff, or I need some place to keep, something of it, because you grow out of it. That's the problem. That's the disconnect, but nobody talks about that. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I have this nice lifestyle and I can live in 600 square feet. Try to live in 600 square feet for a long time. I mean, you can come, let's say you're going somewhere for a week or two or a month. You bunk it. It's like you're in a cottage somewhere. But I wouldn't do it for like a permanent strategy. Now you got these ADUs that you can, auxiliary dwelling units that you can, now Atlanta allows you to put them in the back of your property. You take his property on Beecher, those are deep lots.
Right.
I drop an ADU back there in a heartbeat, but here's what I do. I would keep it on a short lease. I would do a 6-month lease, 1-year lease. I wouldn't do someone who's looking to just be in there forever, because you're gonna wind up having to put a shed out there, or you lose a good tenant. So yeah, they work, but they work in certain circumstances.
Or it can be a she shed.
Right.
Or you can be a she shed, but I don't know how you get your income. I don't know how you get, I'm looking at the income.
I'm just saying because my wife wants a she shed.
Right.
Sit down.
She's trying to get away from you. That's what that is.
No, she's just saying that. And guess who's going in the shed? First day you act up, you went into the shed.
Can you build those on just on an individual lot, or?
No, not in Atlanta.
But they
It
have
has
to
to be, that's why they call it auxiliary dwelling unit. It has to be a part of a dwelling unit. Now, here's what they're allowing you to do, and I just recently found this out. If you build 2, you can get approval for 2, because they become their own auxiliary unit. I don't know how you resell them. My problem is I'm always looking, my eye is always towards selling. God bless you, but I always feel like if I can get that return and I can put it somewhere else, I'll sell it. I tell my students, everything I have is for sale, except the pictures of my kids. I mean, everything. I'll sell these shoes. It really doesn't matter, because it's all value and I'm just swapping value. But I wouldn't switch. But let me say, to your point, I want to just say this. We're gonna do some kind of where you can tag along on some deals. I'll be glad to show you sort of how they pencil, like the financial models. I'm in multifamily, so I do bigger deals, but the concept is exactly the same. But I'd be glad you can shadow me on the analysis and just see it.
Right. If you reach out to us, because like I said, I had a Morehouse guy shadow me last week. I did a church and old funeral home down there on Canada Road.
Or if you find a deal, and let's say you say, guys, can you help me,
Right.
kind of noodle through the deal? be glad to do it. We do this every day. Be glad to do it.
You know, because let me say one thing too. All of us here, the reason we're bringing this back, we're trying to find our replacement.
Right.
Right? 50 years from now, we're gone, you're up here.
Yeah,
We gotta keep this thing going. We can't let it stop.
Do the houses have to be here in
Nope,
Atlanta?
nope. My properties were in Mobile, Paulding County, and Greenville, South Carolina.
And you know, that one I just showed you is in Illinois.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
The technology makes it there. You buy them anywhere. You don't have to, the houses you were looking for, like when you mentioned in Atlanta, where you'll find one, you can find them anywhere. And the way the system is now being set up, you're right. You know, years ago we couldn't do something like that. All right, now it's all electronic. It's all digital. And it means as more and more people are moving and working digitally so they can go anywhere, then you don't have to, you're gonna find deals in Haddock, Georgia, you know, 40 miles outside of Macon, and you can find deals there. And there'll be people that are moving out there.
I was gonna say the other thing, I mean, I obviously think it's better to source yourself, but they also have what's called turnkey properties as well. So there are people who offer the properties, you pay for the property, you already have a tenant in there for you.
Right.
You know, you may already be cash flowing off rip, you know, if the numbers work out. So they have companies that offer turnkey properties as well, so you wouldn't have to source it and negotiate with the owner or anything like that. You just take a look at what the property is. If the numbers pencil out and it makes sense for you to invest, then you go ahead and invest.
And it just depends. So anyway, we're running out of time, but because we want to kind of keep this short, and I like to have the interaction. And one thing we will be doing as we do more of these, especially next fall, is to begin to have some longer kind of like workshops where we can get into this kind of stuff. When we come back, hopefully Brian and I are going to come back and teach some classes. And one of the things I'd like to do is something on crypto and real estate. I think, real quick, the future of real estate is what's called the tokenization of real estate. The ownership of real estate moves to the blockchain and becomes liquid. Think about that. You own a property where you can rent, buy or sell your ownership without friction costs. Would allow you to free up capital to do all types of things. And it's coming. It's just going to take a while to work through all the kinks. And that's why I'm really excited about this stuff. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Oscar. And our next series.
One more question before you go. There seems to be a good time and a bad time to buy cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Now, explain what's the good time and what's the bad time. You said on the phone.
Well, I'll talk to you about that in just a second. We'll do.
Let me just say also, as interest rates go up, as we start seeing mortgage rates and interest rates go up, watch the foreclosures. Watch the and what I always say is you can have a distressed property where the property's not, or a distressed deal. The property's not distressed. The borrower's distressed. So if let's say they borrowed something on a variable rate, and that rate's going up and it's killing them, and they can't hold it. Just watch the foreclosure. Watch them when they get in trouble, and then go in and just cut deals.
Yeah. All right.
We're good.
Again, thank you for coming. Really.